Are we on? Oh no. Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to call the November, it's not the 7th, the November 21st, 2020 Joint Animal Service Commission meeting together. It looks like we have 3 of the 4 voting commission members, and we are missing Joe and Dick, some of our ex officio members representing nonprofits. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
Okay, we will keep going in hopes that Carolina Mejia, Commissioner Mejia, can join us. Is that okay with the rest of the commission?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just for introductions, I'm Lisa Parsley. On screen, I see Peter. Can you just introduce yourself briefly?
Nice to meet you guys. I'm Peter, a guy from City of Tumwater.
And in Lacey City Hall?
Ed Kunkel, Lacey City Council member.
Hey, and Sarah, can you introduce yourself? And our
Executive Director.
okay. And you, Shannon?
Hi, Shannon Kelly Fong, Assistant City Manager for the City of Lacey. And Sarah, can you exit out of the bar across our screen?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm being a bit, as usual, informal tonight. We're not using names, if that's okay, or our rank or title, whatever it might be. All right, I need to approve the agenda, please. Motion would be great.
So I present a motion for us to approve the agenda for today's Zoom. And do I also put a motion to adopt the last 2 meetings for 7th and the 12th?
Oh, the under consent, that will be next.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, if there's no changes or amendments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All righty, moving on to what you were asking about, Peter, the approval of the consent agenda, which is the meeting minutes from September 12th and shelter statistics for September and October.
Correct.
Okay, do you move to approve that?
Yeah, I move to approve that as
Second.
Okay. All right, if there's no changes or amendments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'm assuming we don't have public comment unless there's someone hidden in the Lacey City Hall. I don't see anyone online.
That is correct, and I have received no written comment.
Okay, let's move on to the business items, and I believe that's you, Sarah, so you can go ahead and take it away.
Fantastic. We are going to start out this evening with our budget presentation for the 2023 Animal Services budget. Give me one moment to share my screen. All right. So tonight's presentation is in regards to the proposed Animal Services 2023 budget. This budget presentation will include key accomplishments, significant trends, fund overview and budget summary for 2023, revenue and expenditures overview, capital facilities plan, 6-year jurisdictional assessment estimates, as well as next steps and recommended actions. So key accomplishments for 2022 an accomplishment of goal 1, which is to become a sustainable organization with the capacity to meet the needs of our community as stated in our 5-year strategic plan. We completed the first stage of the capital facilities improvement plan. For goal 2 of our strategic plan, which is to expand and improve animal care and programming to support our community's pets and people, we piloted the new community CAP program, made recommended local ordinance changes for CCP, and completed the interior renovations to the medical building. Goal 3 is increased accessibility, inclusivity, and enhanced community involvement. We expanded our language access by including Language Line, as well as expanded that access to our website with translation services. Language Line is also available not only in shelter, but to all of our field officers as well when out in the field. We also doubled the number of our community events this year over 2021. So population served, in 2021, we served an overall population of 284,670, excuse me, with an overall estimated population increasing in 2022. So as you can see, over the last couple of years, we have consistently grown by 3.69%. What is interesting in the 2022 population assessment, which is what we base our jurisdictional assessments on, you can see that there was significant increases. There we go. Significant increases to the city of Lacey's population over Tumwater and Olympia. And then as of note, you will see that there's an actual decrease in Thurston County population. This is due to the annexing of that went on this year. So you'll see the population has shifted a bit. I'm double checking to make sure that it wasn't Mejia that just texted me. My apologies. It was not. Okay. Animals coming into the shelter, we actually stayed pretty static this year with only an increase of about 1%. In this graph, you can see that we actually broke out intake by animals. So you can see that we had more dogs than cats this year. The same exact number of cats coming in our door, and then an increase, which is we're seeing statewide as well as nationally, is an increase in the other animals. So more of your pocket pets and other types of pets that you could have. Rabbits, guinea pigs, reptiles of all sorts has been on an increase across the board. Adoptions and transfer numbers. So we've increased our adoption number by 7%. While transfers still continue to decrease. And this again is a national trend. When COVID hit, it put all transfers to other organizations on hold as they were trying to figure out what that looked like. And now what we are finding is that agencies such as Seattle Humane and Kitsap are not transferring animals out from some agencies like they used to. They are focusing on their community, or in our case, we are not in the same space as we were several years ago with the number of animals coming in when we were having over 5,000 animals. We were in a much different space and in a much different need than we are today. And so our transfers are much less because we don't need as many outs for the animals, other positive outcomes, I should say. Because as you can see, our adoption numbers continue to go up with our highest ever number being in 2019, right before the pandemic. So we are still 2021, we were still higher in adoptions than 2017 and 2018. Field response has consistently gone down over the years. And then this last year in 2021, if you remember at the beginning of the year, we did an overall presentation of 2021. And it's highlighted here because the reason why that there's such an extreme difference in 2021 versus 2020, as you remember, that is when we shifted to Pet Point. And so we were unable to track our field statistics in as much detail as we can now. And so what we were finding is that in multi-ops, we could not break out and differentiate when we were doing shelter support runs versus field runs. So over the course of tracking this and inputting over the year, we have now been able to have more accurate field statistics. And so moving forward, 2021 and onward, we will only be reporting field response, not shelter support items. Licensing sale has had a significant decrease. Some of this, I will say again, was the transfer from onto Pet Point in and of itself, as well as kind of maneuvering during the pandemic, what sales looked like and getting payment from everybody. So as we've transitioned over, there's been a couple of kinks. For example, our system was not sending out second and third notices for licensing. We have since remedied that. But I would suggest that future discussion about how jurisdictions can support licensing sales is in order, whether that is joint PSAs, joint marketing campaign, and really looking how we can increase awareness about licensing and the importance of licensing. Most people that we talk to, when they have never licensed their pet before, they had no idea it was a requirement to begin with. So we're catching that when people come in to adopt, when we are out in the field and that there is a response to something, that is our opportunity to educate people about licensing their pet. But I do think we are missing some certain demographics and segments that we could be reaching if we joined together and did a mutual campaign. Private contributions. As you can see, they were at an all-time high in 2018. 2019, I will point out, that was the shift and transition to an executive director. I always like to point that out when there's a shift in leadership, because you do see a dip in donations whenever that occurs, because people are unsure of new leadership coming in. So that is not an unexpected dip in 2019, but we have seen significant increases. And I wanted to include 2022 because, as you can see year to date, we've already almost met our 2020 number, and we have not finished the year. Some significant donations that come with that in 2020, remember, is when we were gifted the grant from the ASPCA for $39,000 for the medical suite. And this year, the 170 does include the $55,000 that was granted by the Dulciani Halloran Foundation for this medical suite. Fundraising, our fund overview. So we have looked at this as a commission before, but I like to bring it up again during the budget presentation so that everybody can see where we're at. Our restricted donations, net investments, as well as our unrestricted, and this is probably a little less, they're still restricted, it's just the different types of restricting. So restricted donation here means that this was restricted by the donor or grantor of how the fund should be spent. In unrestricted, even though we still have categories, these were restricted by JASCOM for those funds to be allocated in those different categories. So we're currently sitting on a lot of capital investments and assets at the moment. This will become important further into discussion when we talk about what our medical and vet expenses look like in the coming year. So our 2023 budget assumptions. We are assuming that there is a 3.5 cost of living, as well as step increases in salary. We did, as if JASCOM remembers, earlier this year, the city of Lacey conducted a salary study for all non-represented employees. We have since had the findings from those and have made adjustments accordingly. There's a total of this year of 2023, we will be increasing salaries a total of $73,000, with the majority of that going to frontline staff. So animal care technicians are receiving a 24% increase. Our adoption specialists, our customer service specialists are receiving a 13% increase. And so they are the majority. We looked at several different ways that we could allocate this. And what we decided is that all frontline staff are getting their full chunk in 2023, because they were, by obvious findings of the salary survey, were being underpaid where competitively in the market. And so I wanted to make sure that our staff that is most critical to our frontline operations received compensation starting January 1 with the salary study findings. What we are doing for supervisors, managers, and directors, so leadership, is we are actually balancing the increase to salaries over the next 2 years. So myself, Andrew, Liz, and the new field supervisor will receive our increases spanned out over the next 2 years. So half in 2023 and then the other half in 2024. We are also looking at re-envisioning our foster and rescue specialist into our positive outcomes coordinator. We are finding that our foster numbers have grown. So management of our foster volunteers cannot be done just by our volunteer coordinator alone. We have over 100 fosters and it's growing as we speak. And we even currently at the moment have over 70 animals sitting in foster. So the needs for animals to be in foster is growing. So is the need for positive outcomes. We need somebody to build relationship with rescue so that we can continue our transfer partnerships. And we also need somebody to oversee what other positive outcomes may look like, such as oversight of the community CAP program. This person would help with onboarding and training of all of these fosters, as well as any specialty volunteers that would help, such as transport volunteers or even trappers in the community CAT program. The other item we are taking into consideration in this budget is medical staff. Again, this year, and since the pandemic hit, access to veterinary care has significantly decreased due to the veterinary shortage. We, like the members of the public, are facing 4, 6, 8 weeks wait to get animals in to receive veterinary care, just like the community. Part of our goal with building our medical suite, even back prior to the pandemic in 2019, were the findings that medical treatment was our biggest holdup and bottleneck when it came to moving animals through the shelter system. So we are now at a point with the medical suite being complete, and we're still struggling to meet the needs of our animals. Medical care keeps growing, and the ability to get them seen is becoming more and more difficult. So we are recommending within this budget that we hire a full-time veterinarian as well as a veterinary assistant to start our medical team and begin running spay-neuter surgeries in-house. And along with the generous gift of the Dulciani Foundation, we were also able to buy dental equipment. So now we can also do dentals in-house and not have to wait for veterinary clinics and scheduling. And this isn't a critique on the service of veterinary care. I would like JASCOM to know that this is out of respect and understanding for how much work that they put in on a regular basis. This is not a critique for medical care whatsoever. And when we have our own medical team, what is really of benefit is we are freeing up all of those appointments and spaces that we were taking up for members of the community to be served by the community veterinary clinics. So it will become a win-win. And again, we are absolutely thankful for how collaborative and generous all of the veterinary hospitals are in this area. And we do understand that the struggles that they are in. And so hopefully by us being able to bring medical in-house, we can alleviate some of that stress on them as well. We considered an increase in revenues through donations. Historically, the data is pointing to that we can increase our projections for revenues. We're also taking into account capital improvements, with the replacement of the adoption kennels. And regular expenses are based on historical changes and actual costs. We also took historical base for our facilities and fleet maintenance. We are also taking into the consideration that this year was really hard for us to grow staffing wise as promised to the jurisdictions to give full service to Thurston County. Now, we did provide full service to Thurston County. We were just unable to have the staffing to help support that. So we did calculate a rebate to all jurisdictions based per capita that will be considered as a reduction in assessments for the jurisdictions this year. And we also took into account JASCOM strategic priorities, such as the feasibility study, in-house spay neuter surgeries and medical, and training of staff. We are going to propose the use of restricted medical reserves for medical staff to offset the increase to the budget and allowing for minimal impact to the jurisdictions for 2023. Joint Animal Services would reduce the use of medical reserves over the next 4 years. So this is what the numbers look like that we're proposing to use out of our restricted funding. So currently, we have a total of $730,000 in restricted and unrestricted vet care funding. I am proposing that we utilize the full cost of hiring a veterinarian as well as a veterinary assistant through funding this year. And then as you can see, we would reduce our use of these funds by 20% over the next 5 years. Now, please keep in mind, this is a fund that is yearly replenished through donations. So year to date, we have received $70,000 in donations restricted to veterinary care solely from donors. Revenue overview. So we do estimate this coming year a decrease in licensing due to 5-year trends. We are projecting adoption slightly up based on 2021 and current adoption numbers. We're projecting a decrease in reclaims, not due to the lack of people claiming their pets, but due to the low animal numbers entering the shelters that need to be reclaimed. And private contributions and donations are estimated at an increase based on historical trends. Salaries and benefits continue to be the primary expense when we're looking at our budget. And having carefully reviewed expense trends and adjusted for 2020 where appropriate. We have an emphasis on effective shelter operations, standards of care, shelter medicine, efficiencies, and improved customer service in our expenses this year. So key capital expenses for 2023. We are looking at, for capital improvements, using $150,000 to replace the dog adoption kennels. So these are the dog kennels that are seen by the public. These are the ones that were labeled in most need of repair. And that is the estimated cost when we pulled some estimates from other kennel companies. This would be the cost to replace those kennels. We're also including $2,000. Some of this will be rolled over, by the way, from the $200,000 will be rolled over from this year's budget. So we're not actually pulling the full $200,000 from reserves, but we will be setting that aside for the feasibility study so that we can move forward with plans on what it looks like for a new building and what the costs and build out would look like.
So in this feasibility study, Can we dig a little deeper on that? What exactly are they studying specifically? Are they looking for the practicality of a new building?
Yes.
Okay,
So we'll start off there because yes, you're on the right track with that. So Makers is only going to be giving us, contracted with the city of Lacey, the 30-foot view. So what we kind of saw is that overview. They will be coming back and digging deeper for what some solutions are to kind of hold the building together
okay.
until we can move on to a new building.
Got it.
But that's all they're contracted to do. And again, it's at a very we can't talk today, guys. It's at a very high level. We'll say that.
Yeah.
So what this feasibility study would look at is what the actual practicality, costs, logistics, looking at our lot in and of itself as well. So we do have the ability, we have this paid off land, but they're also going to look at even the use of that land. Like, can we maximize this land to the best of our ability? What does this look like? What does the cost look like? And they'll even do calculations for capacity for care with projections of what the community looks like to say, you need a 30,000 square foot building to house X number of dog kennels, X number of cat kennels to be able to help your community in the future. So this is a more detailed that will go in, and basically the outcome would be initial drawings even for us to look at. So that way we have something tangible to now take to the jurisdictions and the community to make that argument of why we need a new building and what does that look like and what are the costs broken down to look like. And so that's what this study would do.
Just one addition to that too, it would also allow us to go to the next stage when we're ready, which would be the preliminary engineering and design. So we're really kind of setting the stage incrementally for us to move forward with the facility.
And once we know the true cost to build, we can also look at the community's capacity to support a new shelter and how we look at fundraising for that. But we won't know how to fundraise for it either.
You don't know what the number is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and this is going to take into consideration also whether the current property we have meets our needs in the future.
Correct. In an ideal world, it does, because we wouldn't have to go look for new land, correct? But they could come on, look at assess the property, see the wetlands next door, and decide that where we're at may not be the proper area to build. I don't know. It would be really great if we could stay, but that's part of what would help determine some of these decisions. Use of reserves. So we are proposing that we use, as discussed, the 240,000 to cover the medical staff. We will be using 185,000 as a field rebate, but again, that's rolled over from this year's budget. It's not pulling out of reserves. We're rolling over money that we did not spend on salaries as a rebate to the jurisdictions. And then we will also be utilizing the 73,000 as discussed for the salary adjustments from the salary survey. So this is the donation and grant fund. This is how we allocate. Again, this has no impact on the jurisdictional assessments, but these are where we pull some of the restricted funding for public education, medical, vaccines, and professional services, as well as our very tiny licensing assistance program for people who do not have the funds to license their pet. Overall budget expenditures, as you can see, shelter operations continues to be our largest expense. This does include staff, but this also incorporates all medical care and feeding, as well as building maintenance for the entire shelter. This also includes vehicle maintenance. Field services, again, is for Field services, so those are our officers going out in the field. Most of that, again, is staffing related, with some of that being reserved for vehicles, maintenance, and equipment needed out in the field. General services is a handy term for everything else that doesn't fit into those. So that is where our feasibility study, professional services, that is where City of Lacey's administrative fee is put, as well as any computer maintenance, IS services, all get lumped into general services. And as you can see, licensing is just a small percentage expenditure wise of our budget, and grants being a little higher than that, and depreciation. 2023 revenue. So we are looking at a total operating budget of 2,100,000. Hold on. Yep. Okay. Sorry. Let me rephrase. The total budget we are looking at is 3,452,650. What is included in this is our operating budget revenue, which includes the jurisdictional assessments, 123,000 in donations. We are utilizing, and I know this number looks big, but remember, we are rolling over a significant amount of our budget into next year. 1,140,188 as our beginning fund balance. So some of this will be pulled from reserves, and then an additional sum will be rolled over from this year's budget. So overall budget, as you can see, agency contributions is the highest revenue for joint animal services. Next is our shared revenue. So that is our donations. Those are our separate contracts, events, all of those items that are not direct revenue. So basically any revenue coming in that is not licensing, adoptions, or reclaims, it gets put into the shared revenue. And we did break out reclaims, adoptions, and licensing into the budget, with licensing being the third largest in revenue at 125,700, donations being 123,000, then adoptions at 75,000, and then reclaims at 25,000. Overall jurisdictional assessments, Thurston County's assessment this year is 914,688. City of Olympia is 343,165. City of Lacey, with their increase in population this year, goes past City of Olympia for the first time at 363,240. And Tumwater's assessment is 163,257. For a grand total of, excuse me while I move the screen real quick, a total of 1,784,353 in assessments.
Sarah, does that include the rebates you were talking about?
It does, and we will get to that at the end of this presentation. I will pull up the jurisdictional assessments for you. Maintenance and operations is the majority of the budget when it comes down to it. Shelter depreciation, so the total, man, I missed that today. It says 2022, so close. 2023 animal services budget of 3,452,650. This is a 22% increase to the budget, by 633,689. But please remember that 200,000 of that is the feasibility study. 150,000 of that is the kennels, as well as the 240,000 for the medical. So overall, it's not as large of an increase as it could be. Looking at the
Basi-
yes,
Basically, a couple of those are one-time expenditures, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Looking at 6-year jurisdictional projections. So we did want to give you guys a glimpse. And please remember, again, these are projections based on the current budget with some changes. So this is what it would look like. As you can see in 2023, which is where we're at. So looking one over, and you'll see that there's a jump in 2024. That is assuming that there will not be a second field rebate in 2024 because we will be fully staffed. Now, this could change again if we look at providing a field rebate in the future. And then moving forward to 2025 and beyond, you'll see the slow decrease of utilizing our medical reserves to pay for the medical staff over the course of the next few years.
Chair Parsley, one thing to add to the comment that you just made of a lot of it is one time, use of expenditures. And that's true with this graph as well. It, like Sarah just mentioned, it takes into account what the 2023 projected budget is, and then takes a look at reducing the use of reserves for vet service. But it does have budgeted in there around, $300,000+ in one-time fund use moving forward. Just knowing that there are likely other studies that we are going to need to do as we move forward. So that is already taken into account as we're looking at the 6-year projection, and something that could change though over time.
Perfect. Thank you. A great explanation.
So our recommendations moving forward is to use dedicated capital equipment and medical funds to supplement the 2023 capital expenses and projects, and provide a rebate of $185,000 to the jurisdictions for field services due to the limitations of expanding field services in 2022. Questions?
Ed, Peter, do you have any specific questions?
No.
You're on mute, Peter.
Sorry about that. Sarah, I didn't want to send you back, but if you don't mind, can you go back to the jurisdictional assessment, how they break down? I didn't catch the one for Tustin County.
Oh, sure. You know what? Let me pull up our jurisdictional assessment as well for the screen. And then you can see how it looks comparative to the other jurisdictions in a spreadsheet. So hold on one moment while I pull that up for you. And so this is another way to look at the animal services assessments. I also provided this document in your packet, but I like utilizing this one because you can see the jurisdictions side by side, and also broken down by distribution in the budget. And so at the end, what you can see, so this is total overall budget before we take into considerations field rebate, less direct revenue, less shared revenue, restricted grants, and other funding. So once those are taken into account, the assessment that's being charged the jurisdictions is found here in the black. So Thurston County, their assessment is $914,688. It's actually a 2% decrease over last year because of the change in population with the annex.
Did you say you emailed this to us?
I did.
It's in the packet at the bottom, near the bottom, I think.
I have the agenda, but I don't, buried in the agenda? Oh, here we go.
It's page 22.
Page 22.
I also have a paper copy too.
Yeah.
Which pages these are?
Oh yeah, sorry, it's on the screen. I can see page 22.
It's not telling me what page I'm.
Keep going.
It's
the
it's
last-
literally
second to last page.
Okay. Oh, I love iPads.
Mhm.
Got it. Found it.
Okay. And so here's where you can see as well, the percentage changes. So we also, with this assessment, we always show the comparison with the 2022 budget, so you can see the change. So overall, there is a 1% increase to the total overall assessments. Thurston County did see a decrease of 2% because of the population shift. Olympia saw a 2% increase. City of Lacey saw the highest increase at 6%. And again, that's due to the annex, all of that stuff that I am not as familiar with.
Just a real quick, part of it's annexation, but part of it is also just general population growth.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody had a very booming year in population. Especially the City of Lacey. And then Tumwater is also seeing a 2% increase.
Peter, any other questions?
Oh, thank you. This is very helpful.
Sarah, I just have to say, I've sat through a few of these JASCOM meetings over the years, and this was the best budget presentation I've seen for this group. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. This is my fourth one with you, so.
I know. It's really good. I have two questions, well, maybe more. And one comment. I'll start with my comment. Olympia is going to annex a huge portion of our UGA in the next year to year and a half. So that's going to throw off your 6-year projection considerably. Who's going to end up paying it, whether it's the county or the city, but we're going to gain enough population that we're going to once again be the largest city in Thurston County.
Oh,
It's in the works. It has been since I got on council, but I happen to know we're very, 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 very close to it. So definitely within the next 6 years. And that's my comment. Now the other is I saw on the rebate, how does that compare to, we were increasing to get to the appropriate amount of assessment for each jurisdictions. That increase occurred, but then you took the rebate off. Is that correct?
So to complicate it more for you, we have the rebate, which is separate. And then we also took into account JASCOM's promise and discussion to reduce to offset reserves. And so that was our 70,000 was this year that we pull from reserves overall, which was down from our 210 that we had normally been pulling. So this would have been the last year of our official use of reserves just to add to the budget. So while we are kind of back where we started in a sense, it is for a much different purpose than just using our reserves to offset the budget, rather than using the reserves in a strategic manner that is benefiting the shelter moving forward.
Makes sense. Okay, and then my last question is, and it sort of goes to the idea that you're going to hire a veterinarian and a vet assistant, is with these jumps in salaries, does this put us in the mid-range compared to other shelters in what employees are being paid? Or do we know in the scale, is it the bottom, the middle, or the top?
So it truly was dependent on the position. So some of ours, were significantly less than they should have been comparatively to the market. So we were, Joint Animal Services got a little bit of different way of going about the salary study because not all of the cities that were chosen that match City of Lacey the best did not necessarily match Animal Services the best because they may not have animal services. So not all cities have animal services. Sometimes they contract with the county. And so we looked at what was comparable for animal shelters. So not just if a government entity, a municipal, had a shelter, but were they actually comparable in number, in staffing, and on the western part of the state. So it was 10 municipal shelters or nonprofits with municipal contracts because there weren't enough municipal shelters to comparatively for our size and intake as well.
Excellent. All right. I think that's most of mine. I'll be curious to see how you do with hiring a veterinarian these days. And then my one last statement, I guess, is I saw there's a technician, animal technician. Is that a licensed LVT? Because you're going to need one if you're going to have a vet to do anesthesia with the vet.
I can have that discussion with you offline a little bit, Lisa, because there are different parameters and requirements for us as a shelter than a veterinary clinic. And I don't actually have to have an LVT at the shelter. It is preferred and what we would go for, but our animal care technicians are different than a licensed veterinary technician. Our animal care techs are our kennel staff. But I can talk more about that with you at a later date as well as to what our requirements are.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of if you're doing dental work and spay neuters and you have anesthesia, the assistant won't be able to do that for the doctor.
So there was lots of discussion with how we decided to strategically pick the staffing that we did, and it was under advisement of several head veterinarians at shelters.
Okay, that's cool. I'm just trying to make sure we stay in practice act for the state of Washington.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you, Lisa.
Okay, cool. I'm sort of filling the other hat, which is the veterinary person on the commission. Okay, cool. I think Ed, Peter, do you guys have any other questions?
No, I don't have any question. What I would have asked would have been the percentage of change, and she did have that in there, so that is very, very helpful.
And if you have any other questions after the meeting, you can certainly email me and I can provide you any information or gaps that are needed to answer any questions.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Are we moving on?
Yes.
Okay.
So next on the agenda is to talk about our sewer repair. So if everybody remembers, back in January, we did do a sewer repair for the cost of $45,000 in hopes that that would fix the plumbing issues that were going on at the shelter. It has since been discovered that the extent of the pipes that were fixed did not actually fix the problem. There is more pipe deteriorating and we have to go further out both ways underneath the shelter to fix the problem. And if we don't do this, then the blockages and flooding is going to continue to happen. We've had to shut down one restroom again. And we have made every effort to keep our lines as clear as possible, running extra water at the end of every day, prepping the pipes at the beginning of the day. So we are doing everything we can, but we're at a point that it is affecting operations again. And so I am recommending that JASCOM approve us moving forward to hire a contractor or work with the city once more to replace the piping and the concrete at the shelter to hopefully remedy the plumbing repair.
I thought we already agreed to get this resolved.
That was in January. And then it's come up again. And so I unfortunately can't move forward without JASCOM in agreement that
So Councilmember Kunkel, we did, and they did make some repairs and they thought.
No, that I understand. And
Yeah.
then we had this ongoing issue with the plumbing, and that was brought to the council's attention, and I thought there was an effort to go ahead and fix it, understanding the issue that it is. So you're looking for a motion. Okay, so I move that JASCOM approve a second trip with the plumber to get this issue resolved once and for all.
So before you make the motion, what did they do the first time around? I thought they were changing the pipes, or were they just unplugging the blockage?
So what happens is that the pipes, over the 20+ years that we've been in the building, it was a renovated building to begin with. It was an old warehouse.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor.
Yes.
Just to remind you guys.
Do we have a second so we can discuss it? Thank you, Ed. I
No,
appreciate that.
I second it. I second your
Okay.
motion.
Thank you, Ed.
So the change to the plumbing that should have happened in 1996 were not made. And so we have had tens of thousands of animals through our doors since then, using cleaners as well as animal matter going down the pipes for the last 20+ years. And so some of this is, naturally occurring because 20 years ago, we were using much different chemicals of a corrosive nature than we use now. However, what is now happening is that these corroded pipes will catch anything going through the tubes. So toilet paper, any kind of matter going through clogs the pipes. And instead of just not working, what ends up happening is you have wastewater backflowing into all of the kennel areas.
Okay.
Let's get it fixed.
Yeah, and my question is, Ed, thank you for your motion. Do we need to actually put the amount in for that motion to be? Should we do a friendly amendment to that motion?
We're not right now. We can move forward with that motion knowing that we can move forward. One, because if we can make it happen this year with this budget, there is no need to make an amendment to the budget. It's only if repairs go into next year, we might have to make an amendment to the budget if they go into that. But right now you don't need to include the amount. We just needed a motion to move forward so that we can do the RFP. There is an amount of an estimated $40,000 is what's being estimated again for repair.
Probably going to be more than that.
Yep. Thank you, Ed, to speeding this up. Let's just get it fixed is my opinion. So if there's no any more discussion, I'll call a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, there you go. Executive Director, let's get those pipes fixed. All righty. I don't see anything else on our agenda, and the director's report says none under it. Is that correct?
That is correct, because I presented my director's report earlier this month.
Yay. Excellent. Okay. Well, we will be reconvening on December 5th. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
And that is our vote and public hearing.
Yep, on the budget.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Unless there's anything else for the good of the order, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
Okay.